All right, this is a follow-on to our demonstration of how Developer Hub and OpenShift AI and RHTAP all come together into one cluster, one customer experience. And I want to do a little behind the scenes now, kind of reveal some of the magic that has gone on behind the scenes here. So, our Golden Path templates are obviously the thing we tend to show, but the number one feature of a Backstage implementation is the catalog, right? That is the most important thing from a user standpoint. It's the first thing they implement. The second most important thing is the tech docs. Like if I click here, you'll see view docs. So making sure the catalog items all have docs. This one has relatively poor docs, but those tech docs are feature number two. So catalog, docs. Third one might be APIs, depending on how you think of the API, because the API is attached to the actual catalog entry. Like in this case here, I can click on API and see a little bit more about that API. But based on the flexibility of the catalog, I was able to get the model added here. And, okay. And all that is literally some YAML that you put into the system. You come into create, hit register component, put the URL to the .yaml file, and then now you have your registered item in the catalog. And so that model had to have, most important thing was basically the API element of the definition. And you can see just a little graphical representation here. But this is the actual endpoints docs, right? So I just copied them from the endpoint. So, it doesn't have much in terms of open API documentation. This is VLLM at this point, and I assume this is the standard VLLM behavior, right? So the one thing that works nicely here is you can see what model are you running, asking the model server, which is actually a nice feature. I like that one. Okay, so that is kind of at the surface how that magic worked. Again, it's just an import of a YAML file to make the catalog work. A couple other things that are important here, like how did the model come to be, right? So if I go to OpenShift AI and click on one of these guys here, like the one I did dynamically, employee bot AI, you can see there's a data connection here to the Minio. So the storage of the model is not on Hugging Face. It was on Hugging Face, downloaded from Hugging Face and put in Minio. Okay, the way you get to that is you got to know your routes to your Minio. So this is the console for the GUI. This is the API endpoint. Those things show up in a project called IC Shared Minio. All right, so just look for the Minio project or namespace on the cluster. You'll find hopefully two routes there. And then the console is the GUI. If we go look at the GUI, it is over here. Right there it is right there. And actually, let me hit refresh here because I just uploaded a second model. Okay, so there's a model bucket out there. Your models drop in here. There's the Parasol Instruct one you saw me pick in the wizard. That is actually the only model that technically, well, there's two now, but that is the model in the system, right? So this was downloaded from Hugging Face, uploaded using the Minio command line tool. Right, then you can. That's where I went through the upload time. And basically it just gets sucked off your file system, right? So pulled from my laptop, shot up to the Minio, and now it's available for use. Now the user needs to know that string, okay? That's an important string if they want to use it. So if I come over here to my OpenShift AI again, you'll see if I go to data connection, the bucket is models, okay? But if I look at the specific model and look at that, you'll see there's a substring here known as Parasol Instruct. Okay, so the two strings, models, Parasol Instruct, that maps to models, Parasol Instruct. So if I wanted to point at this other model, I would have to use this string instead. And that's what draws it down into the live running model server pod, right? So it comes from Minio into the pod. So a couple other things here. So when I did the create, okay, here, right, there's actually a bunch of things being provisioned. We saw that somewhat for the Argo CD, that it was doing all those things. If you look here at the Argo CD behind the scenes, you can see if when I go look at employee bot, okay, there was the bootstrap, which kind of is the thing that starts it all off. There's the AI build, so that is the infrastructure for OpenShift AI, and then dev build, that's the infrastructure for the development side of the house, right? So that's where the Tecton pipeline comes from. This is where the model server comes from, right? So that's where those two come from. And then the actual application you interact with is a dev, pre-prod, and prod. So you can actually go check out all these different namespaces by going to the OpenShift cluster. If I come here and go to projects, and I type in employee, right, we'll see there's the different ones. There's the AI one specifically for OpenShift AI. That actually matches directly to the data science project. So the data science project, employee bot AI, claims bot, chatbot AI, right? Those are just projects on the OpenShift side, right? So if I go to claims, you'll see there's the claims AI, and if I go to chat, there's the chat AI, right? So those three namespaces hold the artifacts that represent OpenShift AI and the model server. So if I click down on the chatbot one here, you'll see, and let's go look at the GUI version of this, right? You can see there's two little artifacts there, a stateful set, and the deployment, which represents the actual model server. You can also come to it here from the command line, OC get projects. Let's go look at the employee one, employee, and yeah, so we'll go to that one, OC project, switch into that one, and do this, watch. kubectl get pods. Yeah, I switch back and forth between kubectl and OC just because that's what my brain does. But see, here's the actual the large language model running in VLLM in a pod. So I can stern it. Stern is a nice streaming logging framework, so you can kind of just watch it unfold. To kind of make this point, though, there's also the pod for the application. Okay, the pod for the application. So let me do this real quick. And what was that called? So employee bot AI. And let's make sure we use the namespace. Yep, do that. Because now I want to switch to OC get projects. Switch to a different namespace. Employee again. Helps if you spell employee correctly. And oh, not the dev one. We didn't actually, the employee one we didn't actually finish, did we? We didn't actually make a code change. So let's actually do that real quick. So let's go make a code change. Okay, so go to the catalog. Let's go to the employee bot. We go here. You can see there was no code change, no pipeline run. A code change is required to get the pipeline run. So if and there's nothing deployed because there's no pipeline run. There's no container image been built. So I'm going to just go to the source code here. Nothing too fancy. Let's just go here, and let's make it a visible change. So visual change, a GUI change, if you will, so people know that something changed. And edit here, search for buddy. Okay, and what was this one? This is the employee, AI employee. All right, so once we hit commit there, okay, that commit should kick off the Tecton pipeline, which represents the secure software supply chain with all its capabilities. But let's actually go poking around in there. Let's go to that's employee bot dev. Let's see project employee bot dev. Okay, and OC get tasks. Look at that. There's Tecton tasks that are up and running, right? OC get pods. Those tasks are backed by pods that have to do their job. You can see there's things like SonarQube and StackRox and webhooks and builds, and there's all kinds of magical stuff happening here. And you notice the image pull back off on that Quarkus template. That's because there's no container image yet, and therefore it's going to continue to provide that error until we get a container image associated with it, and that means the build has to complete. Okay, so just remember that there's that dev namespace, which holds everything the developer normally interacts with, and then the AI namespace, which is where everything the modeler normally interacts with, right? So just keep in mind there's those two separate namespaces for that. Get projects. Yeah, get projects. Grep employee again, just to kind of look at the different projects that are out there. So modeler stuff, coder stuff, and then there's these two additional namespaces which represent different environments, pre-prod and prod for the application. All right, so that's a part of the equation there. And so looking at the employee one's not so fun. So let's do this. Not employee bot AI. Let's go to claims bot AI. There we go. And let's go to Stern, and let's actually take off this part because Stern actually will do pattern matching. And claims bot AI. All right, got that one. And let's go to OC project. OC get projects. This is the behind the scenes thing, right? So we're doing some hacking here. Claim, and yeah, let's go to this guy here. So OC project, OC get pods, and the Quarkus one, right? So Stern, Quarkus. Let's see if I did this correctly. So I got those. All right, so this is the application code at the bottom. The model up here. You can see the model pod running right there. So, and this was claims. So let's go over here to the catalog, claims, okay, topology. This is where I can get the URL for that one. This is the AI chuck I created, if you remember correctly. Let's pull this down into a separate little window over here. And actually, I'm going to put this here for now and go back over here and then bring my little window back. I'm curious to see how this works. So why is the sky blue? And you'll notice the logging activity at both the application code level, right? So you can see there's the request and response that are going out to the model happening here. And then, of course, the model logging activity as well happening over here on the K-serve container. So again, those two pods are interacting with each other based on the fact that there's the modeling environment and the coding environment. And that is the way it ought to be, right? VLM and the model server living in its own space. So that's an important couple of tidbits I want to make sure we mentioned because I do think they're kind of important, okay? So we got the Minio piece. We got to show you different pods, how to see the different logs. Some other things that are super important here. If you remember in the OpenShift AI user interface, so let's just stay on claims since that's the one we're looking at, and the deployed model, right? We saw that it said, I need an NVIDIA GPU. That information was in the artifacts that came from Argo CD. This is important because you can run your cluster out of GPUs, okay? So let's actually go over here to the administrator UI. This is OpenShift admin UI. Go to compute, go to machine sets, and notice there's machine sets here, right? There's a worker GPU machine set, that one right there. And there's another one, another machine set for worker GPU. And if you look at the nodes themselves and look for GPU, okay, let's do this, worker GPU. But unfortunately, that didn't work. So we'll do it this way. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 GPU worker nodes. And those are G5, 2x large, AWS, right? Look at that guy there. And then here. And then you can see what the specs are on that machine, right? So this one right here, 1 GPU, 24 gigs of VRAM. That's a you can't actually fit much in that, right? So that's about one model. Perhaps it's possible to squeeze 2 in there, but one of these normal models we're interacting with, okay? And I mean the relatively smaller models. So that's where the model comes from, and how it gets loaded into the system, and then of course how it gets mapped to a worker node. And so once you hit 5 models deployed, model servers deployed, you will need to clean up those data science projects, delete them, remove them. And the easiest way to remove the infrastructure associated with the things in the demo is just simply delete the bootstrap Argo CD, and it will not only remove the bootstrap, it will also undo the rest. It'll remove the world, if you will. And then you will clean up your environment, and you won't have that infrastructure, those pods and all that infrastructure being used, and your GPU will become available so it can schedule another project to it. Okay, so just keep that kind of thing in mind. It's an important one. Now, the VLM endpoint, some people, you might be going, hey, where's my VLM endpoint? You can see here that the Inference endpoint is currently wrong. That's just the way it works right now. So in order to get that real endpoint, you kind of have to know the backdoor way to get it. One is you can just do, I believe you can just simply go OC get routes. Let's see here, just to double get this. Claims.ai, OC get routes in, and you can see there that's the real one. Okay, that's the real one, not the one you see in the GUI. That's one way to grab it, but also we've hidden it. Now, maybe hidden's the wrong term. But in order to make the developer experience nice, so they don't have to worry about their edit, save, refresh, their inner loop, etc., it's actually mapped here in the application properties. That's another way to pick it up. So you can see it right there. And so that is a way for them to know where it is, if you will, and the model name that it's. We're also using Parasol Instruct here. Okay. No API key required for OpenAI because we're not using OpenAI.com. So just say not required. But that's basically how you use OpenAI. It's literally the OpenAI API targeting the VLM, running on OpenShift AI, and the magic is really right there in those property files, okay? So that's the way the coder gets access to the model without even thinking about it that you saw in the demonstration earlier. So that's an important element. You can, of course, just grab this URL and paste it into your browser. It will give you the nice, funny little simple thing, detail not found. It's not exactly helpful, is it? But if you take off the V1 and put in docs, you will then get the OpenAI API JSON, right, associated with it. And so that is the documentation associated with it right now. Okay, so you can use curl commands and things like that to interact with the model if you choose to. This route, being a route, is public to the world at large because this cluster is public to the world at large. So factor that into the equation. You might just want to use a service, not a route, if you want to keep it a little bit more hidden from the world, and depending on how visible your cluster is to the world. Okay, so that's a lot of interesting background and backstory. One other thing I'll show you is, a key question is, how do these, let's go back to my OpenShift AI, yep. So not OpenShift AI, sorry, the our developer hub. How do the things show up over here in this model drop-down list box, okay? So notice I put a bunch of things there. The actual template itself is in the RHDH section of GitLab. So you got to get to the main link GitLab. Go see the RHOAI on RHDH template. Okay, boom. And if I can click correctly, you can drill down into that template. You can see there's a skeleton. That is the Java code or Python code or C# code. The skeleton is the code you want as the default part of the template. But the manifest here are super important. You can see there's an AI set of manifest, an application set of manifest, and this is essentially the Tecton set of manifest, the build one right there. And then the template.yaml itself holds the items in that list. Okay, so you can see where it says model name here. So this template YAML is the definition of that wizard. So when you run to the wizard and you get a prompt like this, that's where it's coming from. All right, so you can add other strings to the list that you want there. The one thing I want to caution you for, if you decide you really want parasol claims to work, make sure you have parasol claims in Minio, right? So if you have a parasol claims here, then it would work, okay? Because it's basically just pattern matching that string to the bucket folder that's here. So maybe I'll make a future video based on that. But that's kind of the behind the scenes story of some of the things that's happening inside the demo and some things to watch out for and ways to possibly help you troubleshoot and debug.